What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we're giving a state of the market and stock picks for July 1st, 2022. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as I do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead in this glorious market. Yes, and we do provide sarcasm when necessary. So, being said, what do we got in this market? We got an interesting couple of days. We've had a lot of data come out this week. But today we had the core PCE come out today, and the PCE was much lower than expected. So food and energy are coming down, which is good as far as inflation standpoint. But then you had jobless claims come out, Chicago PMI come out. And the problem being is that jobs, there was a lot more essentially unemployment happening. So being said, next week we have a bigger report coming out with the ADP Employment Report, which was actually postponed later down the road. That can was kicked down the road, I think now till August, which is interesting. And then we have the non-farm payroll next week and the unemployment rate next week. And these are going to be big because what people are really watching and what is really selling the market off right now is people are anticipating what's going to happen in the next Fed meeting on the 15th, and understanding that in that time, you're going to have people are really watching to see consumer sentiment and determine if people are buying. Are people buying? Are people taking risk off the table? That's ultimately what we're asking ourselves and trying to determine where employment rate is, because again, if rates continue to push up, there will be cuts. We've seen this in Tesla. Tesla started cutting some of their AI personnel just the other day. Elon has even suggested that things are going to get really bad. Kathy Woods is suggesting that we are in a recession already. There's a lot of information floating out there. Now, even though just the other day we had the ECB conference come on and they were talking, Powell was there, and they were kind of like, oh, we have a hold of it. Everything is fine. But he also had Powell just just a couple of days ago say that things are not fine and that they're really having trouble trying to gauge inflation and how it is. And something I've talked about and reiterated over the past couple of days, and that is until we have full control over oil and bring down oil, will we actually be able to get a grasp of inflation. Increasing rates is only going to stunt growth in the economy and lead us to deflation and possibly stagflation. So this is what's concerning. Recession is what's concerning. I think recession, we're pretty much there to some extent, but ultimately what we need is we might need more people unemployed. The data set from unemployment needs to be a lot higher, and this would be why essentially the ADP Employment Report has been delayed, which is funny because it could mean things are a lot worse than people seem. And again, the Fed is going to try to regulate and do whatever it can and delay information to not panic the market, because that's the last thing you need is bad data, really bad data, historically bad data, and then the market panic, and then you're going to be in trouble. Then the market's going to break critical levels, particularly that 36, and then we're going to see some major flushing going on here. And again, I think we won't see peak inflation till the end of the summer. At that point, then I think we'll start to hit peak inflation, come back down, get some sort of grasp. I think the Fed till that point. I think the next Fed meeting, I think we'll see a lot of aggression from the Fed again, with these at least a 75 point or 100 point. Potentially right now, I think is what they're going to do. They're going to try to front run these rate raises in hopes to cash it and dial it back. But again, realizing that Fed has to concentrate either on employment or they concentrate on inflation. It's not they can't do both one and the same because one affects the other one. So being said, it's again a very fine line to try to juggle that and try to make that happen. So being said, we are getting ready for earnings. Bank earnings are starting off right during the Fed meeting, which is quite interesting. And then you're going to have big tech followed up the following week after that, or next 2 weeks after that. Tesla's been coming in kind of Tesla and Netflix have been essentially coming right after banks the following week. And then after that, you have a lot of big tech for the 2 weeks with Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google, all of them start reporting. So that's just around the corner. And being said, are we going to get into some kind of earnings rally? Even today, with all the bad news, we started off pretty heavy and then we started climbing back. In my opinion, I think this pushback might have been trying to get into earnings mode. Now, you want to be careful and trying to think that earnings mode is just going to start pushing this thing up dramatically. Technical wise, we did break the 20 EMA daily. Every time I say we break it, we're going to retest it and you're going to get drop again. So we could potentially gap up tomorrow and then we may hit the ceiling here and then drop, or it could be considered a higher low. Really just depends tomorrow. But ultimately, whenever you're looking at any chart, you go with overall sentiment, and overall sentiment is bearish. So being said, any pump you get, you're going to essentially short it down to the roots. And again, I think we've been kind of floating around this 75-point basis move. And something I'm thinking about is that considering that the Fed might come in at 75 or 100, I think we could just play this range. And we very well might do that for the next week or two. We might get a little bit of a rally next week. I think we could potentially have a rally. Again, it's a short week, so remind yourself that. So we might get a bit of a rally just to try to get some kind of earnings in, and then potentially sell off. Again, we have a lot of data, heavy data at the end of next week. And this is something also to keep in mind. These numbers typically don't even matter. But right now, with everything that's going on, you need to understand that right now it holds more weight than it's possibly had in a very long time. Again, just depending on the market sentiment determines what is holding weight and what is not. Again, these reports, just a year or two ago, nobody cared about what came out with these reports. The market hardly moved on these reports, and now they're changing direction on every data set that comes out. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, 50-50 tomorrow. Again, it's chopped here for a while. Wouldn't actually be surprised if we drop back down to 37.43 and then pop back and then just kind of hold this tight range. Keeps us in the middle of the 75 and the 100-point basis move. Could potentially happen, or we could try to break out and retest this and then just dump from there straight down to 100. Again, it really just depends. Tomorrow, we have some manufacturing PMI, which really doesn't hold a lot of weight in my opinion. I think more so we're waiting for next week to get that. To get the non-farm payroll unemployment rate information. So I think that's really what next Friday is going to be a big potentially leading into the Fed meeting. And then again, you got earnings starting to kick off. So that's what we got for the general index. Again, it could go each way. It really depends where we land. Bitcoin's continuing to sell off. Looks like we broke and starting to push down. Could potentially retest and start selling off. Again, Bitcoin is following the general market. Nothing is holding weight, right? Like even gold isn't holding weight either. People are just really going cash, and that's concerning because if we are talking about recession, people would rather be cash to try to determine what's happening as opposed to jumping into something. So, and then you got Tesla tomorrow. Again, watching this. Ultimately on this, I'm watching the daily. We are creating this really tight wedge here. So essentially playing between the 163 and then this lower triangle here. So really watching this break here to see if it does break. We could continue to push, but it makes sense if we actually pushed going a couple more weeks, just keeping Tesla really tight. And then if we get any kind of positive sentiment, Tesla could break out and really start running. So kind of watching Tesla there to see if that's potentially going to happen. Again, if we get any kind of panic, this isn't going to matter. We could break this down and then start heading back down to the 500. Could be a strong possibility. Google selling off heavy today. Again, same thing. Hit the triangle of this lower trend line and bounced right out of it. But things aren't looking good. And so you're seeing a lot more selling. Amazon, same thing, but things reversed towards the end of the day. MU had really good earnings, and even the forward guidance was looking really good, but they haven't moved, and that's concerning. And something we need to keep in mind going into the next meeting is that, see, even NVIDIA has got a descending wedge. This looks like this could potentially pump and start breaking. So MU did really good, but and NVIDIA looks like it wants to break out. So ultimately, what we want to see is during this earnings, are we going to get great earnings and then forward guidance be bad? The market just continue to sell because overall sentiments, consumer confidence is really what people are looking at. Consumer confidence, and also looking at in employment and seeing how this earnings I think is going to weigh a lot on the market. And I think this could be the last dive going through this earnings. If there is any dive, I think it's going to happen now. There'll be one last dive. And then I think, again, we'll hit peak inflation by the end of the summer, and then we'll start ripping back up towards the back half of the year. All-time highs, I'm not sure, but I know we could probably recover a lot of that before the end of the year. So we'll have to see. But nonetheless, we definitely want this to hold. We don't want NVIDIA to break this down. This trend line here does break down. Could start seeing some major selling down to 140. Break that, and then this is the monthly, so you start getting to some more danger zone if that does break below that. So Airbnb took a massive hit today. It's something I'm watching tomorrow. I was looking for the 192 retest, essentially 193 retest tomorrow. If it doesn't get a nice retest, this could be a good short position to short tomorrow. So kind of watching that. I think that's probably my number one candidate aside from the SPY and the index. But I like how this had a nice clean break. Now we should get a nice pump back into this tomorrow, roughly around the 93 mark. If it doesn't break back through, it would be a nice short position again to short that one. But I do like Airbnb as well. They haven't been doing very well. Now let's look at banks. Banks right now, JPM, again. And then if we look at banks here, banks have been holding, JPM's been holding this 111 mark really well. Again, if we break below this 111 mark, I actually thought we had the clean break, and then we found some demand there and it pushed it right back up. But if we do break that 111, this is definitely going to be a big trouble spot for JPM if it doesn't do that. Goldman Sachs, it did gap down and then held below the daily at the 298. So if this does not push back over the 298 by tomorrow, if the banks really start giving out tomorrow, again, that's the biggest thing to watch. If the banks start giving out tomorrow, again, this is a break, retest. If it does stay below the 131 mark or the 31 mark for Bank of America, this thing could start really dumping. So that's what I'm saying is the banks don't look very hot. They need to stay on par. If they start selling off, the rest of the market could go with it. So again, that's what I'm kind of watching. I think the biggest ones I'm watching again tomorrow are Airbnb, MU. Is a big one because of earnings. I want to see how if it starts to push up. If it starts to push, we could get a bit of a rally tomorrow, and then watching SPX, Tesla, and seeing where they land and go from there. So it is Friday tomorrow. It is Take Profit Friday, so be careful. Again, you don't need a lot to make a lot in this market, but nonetheless, go ahead and drop a like if you had made it this far. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.